Before we start our proceedings this morning, Imam, you have the floor. You can offer some prayers, please.
الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين الحمد لله هادينا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هادينا الله الأول والآخر والظاهر والباطن يا ربنا لك الحمد كما ينبغي وجلال وجهك وعظيم سلطانك وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد خاتم النبيين وإمام المرسلين سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين آمين.
Shukran, Imam Diallo. Bishop, you have the floor, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Lord God Almighty, we continue to bring the sittings of the Trrc before the throne of grace. And we continue to submit ourselves under your direction. We continue to bring our imperfections before you and to ask that you do have mercy upon us as we deal with our human frailties. We continue to ask that you continue to uphold all the staff of the Trrc, the statement takers, the investigators, the legal team, to do their job as they continue to do their job in a professional manner. We ask that the Holy Spirit will always guide and direct what they do in honor of you and in honor of the people of this land. And we continue to bring all the witnesses that will be appearing before the Trrc, that they will come empowered with the Spirit to speak the truth and nothing else but the truth, so that the healing in this land will continue to take effect. The reconciliation will continue to move around every family in this land and abroad. And we continue to ask for that spirit of patience, for vengeance belongs to you, and that we should not be hasty, but allow that the due process take its course. This we ask through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much indeed, Bishop Wadeko. Council, are we ready with this morning's witness? If so, please proceed.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, commissioners and members of the audience. Ms. Sagar Thomas Jatta would lead the next witness. The witness is ready and waiting. Thank you very much.
I, Tida Jatta Jarju,
I, Tida Jatta Jarju,
do swear
do swear
I, Tida Jatta Jarju,
I, Tida Jatta Jarju,
do swear
that
I'll speak the truth,
I'll speak the truth,
the whole
the
truth,
whole truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Chairman. Good morning, Commissioners, and good morning, members of the audience. Good morning, Madam Witness.
Good morning.
And how are you this morning?
I'm good, thank you.
Thank you for agreeing to testify before the Commission today at very short notice. We appreciate the effort. We met very briefly this morning, and as you know, my name is Sagar, and I will be the one, I'll be the counsel questioning you this morning. I'm sure you're familiar by now with all of our rules and regulations here at the TRRC, but I will just repeat some of them to you just so that you're familiar, to get you more familiar with them. We try to get all witnesses just to be as comfortable as possible whilst they're giving their testimony. So in that regard, I would just ask you to assume whatever sitting position that makes you most comfortable, and just make sure that you draw the microphone close to your mouth as you speak so that we can hear you quite clearly. I know that you're quite a fast talker through our interactions this morning, so please just take it slow as you give your testimony for the benefit of the interpreters so that they'll be able to interpret your testimony into the different various local languages. For today, what we will be focusing mainly is just your role at the Ministry of Education, where you currently worked and worked over the years. Your role there in the different positions that you occupied at the time, and in particular, what your involvement was in regard to the scholarship pageants that were going on at the time, and some of the information you received whilst you were working in that position, especially in regard to the sexual violence theme that we are currently hearing at the TRRC. I hope everything is understood and you're ready to proceed.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Kindly give me your full names.
My name is Tida Jatta Jarju.
When and where were you born?
I was born in Banjul on the 5th of October 1972.
And, where were you raised?
In Banjul, then in the Combos, later Kunda, then Kanifing mostly.
And what is your current address?
Currently, I live in Keseri.
You could leave your microphone on
Okay.
if it's easier for you.
Thank you.
Okay. What is your current occupation?
Right now, I'm a civil servant working at the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education.
What is your current position?
I am the Director for Basic and Secondary Education Programs.
Can you just tell us briefly what your role is?
Right now?
Yes.
Okay, I have policy oversight on programs under the ministry, and they range from special needs education to gender and education to life skills education, madrasa education, adult and non-formal education, our school feeding program, school agriculture, and also school agriculture.
Did you say that the gender unit was within your portfolio?
It's within my, and it's still within my portfolio, yes. It's under my directorate.
Please tell us just briefly what the objective of the gender unit is.
Basically, is to make sure that girls and boys go to education without mishaps, and also to make sure that the quality education of both boys and girls are taken care of, and also the protection of boys and girls. Boys and girls are protected in school throughout their education career, that is from our basic education to secondary education.
Okay, thank you. Just to also ask you just to wait for a few seconds in between our speeches so that our speeches don't overlap.
Okay.
Just wait for me to answer the question, and perhaps wait about 3 seconds before you respond. Kindly give me a brief summary of your educational background.
Okay, I started nursery school at an early age, and then I started my primary education at Laterkunda Primary School from 1981 to 1986. Then I took my common entrance and proceeded to Gambia High School from 1986 to 1991, and then to St. Augustine High Schools. That's where I did my A-levels from 1991 to 1993. And then I went to Forobay College, where I started my bachelor's degree, but we couldn't finish because of the war. In 1997, we have to be transferred to Ghana, University of Ghana, Legon, where I obtained my BSc honors in sociology and political science. In 2002, I proceeded to the University of Hull, that is United Kingdom, where I obtained my master's degree in education, counseling, and information education technology in education. I also have certificates in guidance and counseling, postgraduate. I also have a postgraduate certificate in counseling, psychology, and psychotherapy. I also have another postgraduate certificate in administration and management, advanced diploma. I also have certificates in gender and education mainly, but also in gender mainstreaming, gender sensitive budgeting, and also, but mostly gender and education related issues.
The lead counsel was just commenting that perhaps we may have a job here at the TRRC for you. Kindly tell us what you did after you finished your education.
Yes, when I finished my bachelor's degree, when we finished my bachelor's degree, at that time I was a member of the student union then, that is the National Union of Gambian Students in Ghana. We paid a courtesy call at the then Minister of Education, who advised us to give back to the country because they sponsor us through. So that's how we started working. I, for one, started working at the ministry, and I'm still there since 1999.
So the Ministry of Education basically awarded you scholarships to go and study abroad?
Yes, I obtained a scholarship to Sierra Leone, yes.
Please wait 3 seconds between my question and your answer.
I'm sorry.
Thank you very much. Tell us how you progressed through your different positions in the Ministry of Education.
Yes, initially I was appointed as a graduate teacher but posted at the guidance and counseling unit. At that time, right now it's the life skills unit, but before it was the guidance and counseling unit. And from 1999 to 2006, I was at the guidance, 2005, sorry, I was at the guidance and counseling unit. Then from 2005 to 2015, yes, end of 2015, or 16, end of 2016, I was at the gender unit.
Briefly tell us what your role was in 2005, 2006 when you were head of the gender unit.
Yes, as a ministry, gender is mainstream in our policy, and it was seen as something very important to set up a unit for gender. It was originally the girls' education unit, because we were having issues with girls' education in terms of access and retention. And then when we made gains in issues of access and retention in girls' education, the unit was renamed Gender Education Unit, so that it will also focus on boys, because we were having issues of boys' education too. So my main the work that I do at the gender unit at that time was to advise policy on issues of gender and education, and it ranges from protection, quality, issues of quality, and also issues of retention and completion of both boys and girls in school.
Did you have any policies in place that were guiding, gender mainstreaming in the Ministry of Education?
Fortunately for us, the policy, gender was mainstream in our policy, and you have a special chapter for gender mainstreaming. And all the issues that we deal at our level at the ministry has to deal with gender, both boys and girls. So there was no, we've seen, we decided that since gender is mainstream, there was no other necessary for another policy for gender, because it's mainstream throughout our education process.
And this education policy, can you tell us when it was dated, or from what period to what period it applied?
Yes, gender was in our 2004, that's where we started to mainstream gender. The 2004 to 2015 education policy, and also the current policy, which is 2016 to 2030 education policy.
In terms of gender protection, were there any policies or guidelines in place?
Protection, all those things are under the gender mainstreaming bit, issue of child protection, because that's paramount in our policy.
Did you have guidelines on sexual harassment,
for example? Yes, we did, because during the time of my predecessor at the Girls Education Unit then, this sexual harassment policy was developed. And then there was also the guidelines, there was also the code of conduct for teachers. And it was from those policies that we were able to develop the guidelines against sexual abuse in Gambian schools, the alternative discipline handbook, so that we will deal with the issues of corporal punishment in our schools, and also the code of conduct for teachers.
I assume that these policies were accessible to perhaps staff of the Ministry of Education as well as teachers in the different regions and schools. Were they made available to pupils and students within the school system?
Yes, because they were user-friendly and they were very small. Anybody can use them. And it was even in that policy that we have the reporting mechanism. We had to report when you experience cases of abuse, yeah. It was very user-friendly.
And how many cases of abuse or harassment did you record during that period? Just approximately, if you can remember.
You know, most of the time, as we know in the Gambia, cases of harassment and abuse, most of them are not reported. But it's in the hundreds. Like since 2004 to now, we have the data, but I think it's about less than 500, not up to that.
Would you say it was commonplace within the school system?
No, commonplace, no. Because the issue is, yes, we have cases. It's true, but because of the sensitization, the department invested a lot when it comes to the issue of child protection. It invested a lot. And girls, and both boys and girls are aware that when you see cases of harassment, how do you negotiate yourself out of the situation? How do you report? And we had, we created a lot of impact in that.
During, or perhaps in 2006, who was the Minister of Education?
It was Honorable Fatula Mimfai.
And around 2006 to 2007, did you recall having any new event that was hosted by the ministry?
It was not hosted by the ministry, but we were part of it.
What was your role, and can you tell me what event you're referring to?
Yes, this event was the Miss Black USA. But there was a steering committee set up at the office of the Vice President then. And the ministry was invited to serve in the committee. And also the because we have a gender education unit, and this has more to do with girls, the gender of education unit was delegated to be part of the committee.
And what was the objective of that particular pageant?
Yeah, I think not the objective of the pageant. I cannot tell you much about that. But the reason why we were co-opted in the committee was because they wanted girls to partner with the contestants, for them to be as mentors to them, as friends, and also as role models.
And how did this happen? How was it organized?
Can you reframe the question, please? What was organized?
The partnering between your girls and members of the pageant. Tell us perhaps where these girls came from, how they were selected, and what this mentoring exercise, so to speak, involved.
Thank you. Okay, we have regional structures, we have regional education offices. So let us, we are retained regional education offices to choose girls, because originally these contestants were from 50 states of the United States of America. So 50 girls were needed to partner with these 50 girls. So girls we are choosing from each region, and they were hosted at different hostels, and they were partnered with these contestants.
And what schools did these girls come from?
From our senior secondary schools.
And what was the age range of the girls?
Senior secondary school is grade 10 to grade 12. So the age range may range from 16 to 18 or 16 to 19, something like that.
Did you find that this exercise was beneficial to the girls in the end?
Yes, my candid opinion, yes. But because, especially the talent bit, because I could remember even after the pageant, the girls were trying to mimic, what their friends were doing, and it was an eye-opener for them.
And after this event was conducted, you would regard that it was a successful event?
Okay, anyway, because I don't have the expertise then to say it was a successful event, but on the side of our girls, it was, because, it was an eye-opener for them. Yeah.
Did this beauty pageant lead to any new initiative that the Ministry of Education was involved in?
Yes.
Kindly tell us what it was and when it was.
This was in 2008, and that was the Miss 22nd July Scholarship Pageant.
Please tell us how this pageant came about and what its objective was.
Yes, it was as a result of the Miss Black USA, and I think the former president said that this kind, according to the committee meetings that we had, that decided that we can replicate this in the Gambia, and instead of calling it any other name, it could be called the Miss 22nd July Scholarship Pageant. And it was mainly for girls to be awarded scholarship after the event when they win.
So what you're saying is that the main difference between the Miss Black USA pageant and this one was that the former was a beauty pageant and the latter is a scholarship pageant.
Yes, Council, because it was for girls going to school. And I think we all know that most of us find it difficult to pay school fees and also sponsor our way through university. So if something like that, is initiated, I think that would be a good idea.
And I understand the fact that with beauty pageants, what would be showcased perhaps would be the beauty of the girls, perhaps not entirely, but that would be part of it. But in terms of the scholarship pageant, what was the main thing that was showcased?
Okay, we looked at the intelligence force and the comportment. That's very important, and also the talent.
And how was this scholarship pageant organized, and who organized it? Just tell us how the setup was.
Okay, a steering committee was set up. That is National Organizing Committee. It was called the National Organizing Committee of the Miss 22nd July Scholarship Pageant. And because it has to deal with girls in the upper basic and senior secondary, the Ministry of Basic and Secondary Education has the bulk of the contestants. Now, the Minister of Basic and Secondary Education chaired the National Organizing Committee. But notwithstanding, we have members of the committee, the Minister for Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology, Minister of Youth and Sports, Minister of Tourism and Culture, the Minister of Communication, when she was a woman. They were all part of the committee, together with the technical people and also those that have experience in conducting pageants.
Were there any judges as well?
Yes, that's the event proper. Judges are selected and also from different subject areas. Yes.
Tell us how the girls were selected for this particular pageant.
Okay. The first edition was a big one, and it covered about 100 girls, 10 from each administrative area, together from 30 from this tertiary. So each administrative area, we have 7, Banjul, KMC, and the regions. That is 70 and 30 from the tertiary institutions, which are MDI, GTTI, Gambia College, and the University of the Gambia. So they were 100. And what was done during that edition was everything was centralized. The preliminaries were done at central level, and the winners competed in the final. And also, different judges judged the different events. But for the other editions, it was reduced to 22. One is because of finance and also capacity. So 2 were chosen from each administrative area, also 2 from each institution at the tertiary level.
For now, let's just concentrate on the first event that was organized, I believe, in 2008. You mentioned that the girls started from the upper basic schools and went on to the tertiary institutions. Thereafter, how were the judges selected, and how were the preliminary selection done, and then how did that lead into the main event?
You're talking about the first edition?
Yes, I am.
Yes. The first edition, as I said earlier on, everything was centralized. Girls were chosen from their schools from their respective regions, and to come and compete at central level. So the preliminaries were done at central level. And when the preliminaries were done, the winners competed at the finals. So that was done for the upper basic level, the senior secondary level, and the tertiary level. And as for the judges, can I go? Can I carry on? Okay.
Yes, please go.
As for the judges were chosen as per their subject area. We have some from the Gambia Chamber of Commerce, some from tourism, you have some lawyers and doctors, teachers, retired educationists. Most of them serve as judges. And also, I think some from the business community, private sector.
And these judges served in the initial selection as well as the main event.
Yeah, but they come at different levels. For example, if I, as a judge at the preliminary, I will not judge at the finals.
Yes. And there was a mini pageant that was organized initially. And from the winners of that mini pageant, that is what led to the contestants being selected for the final stage. Is that correct?
That's correct. So that mini event is the preliminaries that I was talking about.
Yes, indeed. Just kindly tell us how the actual event proper, that's the final stage, what were the different stages? How did it start, and up to what point did it end?
What do you mean? Can you rephrase your question?
Before the event started, were the girls required to do anything before the event?
Okay.
And during the actual event, on the day of the event, just take us through the different stages. In terms of the program of events, what happened on the day, up to how winners were selected and what prizes were given.
Thank you. The first edition was something that, the issue of pageants is something new to us as a ministry. And the first edition, we learned a lot from the first edition. And it was like the number was big, and we relied so much on people we think have the expertise to conduct the event. So not much was done compared to the other editions. Because for that edition, we are focused on how to train them so that they will be able to talk about their platforms. That is what they intend to do if they win, and also how to answer questions, and also the card work. You understand? And during the event proper, I think you have the round one, which deals with the platform. That is what you intend to do when you win. And they come in their traditional attire, and I think it's a way of also promoting the culture. A Sarahule girl will come in dressed as a Sarahule, and also a Wolof girl will come and dress like a Wolof. And then the second round deals with the talent, what you are good at, and that's what they showcase. And the final round is the question and answers, and that is general knowledge. So we wanted to test in the general knowledge of the girls.
And during the program, was there any training provided for the girls at any stage?
Yes, especially when they are at the boot camp. Yes, they are trained. They are trained for the first, but as I said earlier on, for the first edition, at that time we have little knowledge about this. Normally it was the platform that they were practicing together with their talent and also the card work.
How were the winners finally selected, and what prizes did they receive?
Yes, as I said, the main prize for the pageant is the scholarships that are awarded. But at the end of the pageant, prizes we are given to the girls, and that involve flowers. Some will have laptops. It depends on the position. Some will have books, texts, or novels. It depends. Yeah.
Let's just start with the award of scholarships. What kind of scholarships were awarded, and the different categories?
Okay.
And then we can then move on to the different gifts and how those were sponsored.
Okay. Yes. If a winner because that's the only event that we have contestants from upper basic. We squash it after. The winners at the upper basic, if you win, you get you are entitled to a scholarship up to bachelor's degree. Then at the senior secondary level, you are entitled to a scholarship up to master's level, and for the tertiary up to PhD level.
And what institutions were open to these scholarships?
Okay. For the bachelor's level is the University of the Gambia, but we also sponsor those that go to MDI for their professional courses, and the GTTI, and also the Gambia College. But for those that are at the secondary level and are still at the secondary level, we sponsor them through the ministry. And those at the upper, from the upper regions, we are sponsored through the Scholarship Trust Fund for Girls, because that is across the board from those in North Bank region, students from North Bank region up to Upper River region.
Were there any overseas programs that were available through the scholarship?
Yes, for those that do courses that are not being offered by any tertiary institution in the Gambia. For example, I think I could remember two vividly from the first edition. That one was doing aeronautics engineering, and I think the other one was doing something related to the sciences. I cannot, recall. But they were awarded scholarships in Inland, where they studied their bachelor's degree.
And how many people benefited from overseas programs?
For the first edition,
Yes, please. Or in general, if you can tell us.
For the first edition, it was 2, and the ones that went through our office as a ministry.
And who financed the scholarships?
For the one outside,
locally
overseas?
as well as outside.
Okay. Now for the ones, the 2 that went overseas, it was financed by the then president of the Republic. But for the ones going to the University of the Gambia College, and or within the country, it was through the Ministry of Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology for tertiary. And for senior, secondary, and upper basic, it was through our ministry, basic and secondary education.
And these 2 that you mentioned that were sponsored by the president, were they the only 2 that were sponsored for overseas programs?
For the first edition, to my knowledge, and the ones that go through my office, that is our office, the ministry, I know of.
The ministry has sponsored overseas programs. Is that what you're saying?
No, it was not. The ones that went overseas, as I told you, were sponsored by the then president of the Republic. And our ministry sponsored those at upper basic and senior level. And those within the country is Ministry of Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology for tertiary.
My question was whether or not the ministry had cause to actually sponsor any overseas programs for any student.
No, not to my knowledge.
So therefore, the only person who sponsored overseas programs was the president?
Yes.
What happened after the scholarship pageant was over?
Okay, normally what is done is the president is the chief patron of the pageant. So when the winners are announced after the pageant, a day will be, everybody goes home with the chaperone. Now, after the day of, a day is normally set for courtesy call to be made to the president of the Republic.
Please carry on.
Yes, a courtesy call is made to the president, and the winners will be presented, and he will also offer them gifts.
And the gifts that you mentioned previously, these gifts, are they different from those?
Yes, because we as a committee will give them gifts for performing well, but when courtesy calls are made, he also gives them gifts. But for this first edition, he said he was so happy with the performance of the girls, he offers scholarships to all of them. So all of them benefited, the whole 100 benefited from the scholarships.
And who financed those scholarships that they benefited from?
Yes, as I told you, the Basic and Secondary Education Ministry, the Ministry of Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology, and the 2 that went, that studied outside by him, the president.
And did he have that prerogative to award them Ministry of Education scholarship when the Ministry of Education did not actually select these girls?
Select them? I don't understand that question.
You mentioned the fact that the winners were awarded scholarships through the Ministry of Education, especially those who benefited from local programs here in the country. However, when you paid a courtesy call to the president, he decided out of his own accord to offer all of them scholarships. But you're saying that despite the fact that these scholarships were offered by him personally, it was the Ministry of Education that had to finance those scholarships. Yeah. And I'm asking you what right he had to do that.
I don't know.
He just did it.
Maybe.
Did you have a choice? So you just had to enforce whatever he said?
Not whatever he said, but what he said to that respect, that these girls were should be sponsored.
On that particular occasion?
Yes.
You had to do what he said?
The ministry has to do what he said, or the ministry is concerned.
Yes, you were working on behalf of the ministry at that point. Thank you very much. Just tell us, in terms of the courtesy call, what else happened?
No, for the first edition, after the courtesy call, there was a time that I got a call from the minister, honorable minister, and she informed me that he's doing a bank, that is the president wants to organize a banquet for the girls, and it will be done in Kanilai, and all the participants and those in the organizing committee can participate if they want to. So all the girls were camped again and at the hotel, and they were accompanied by the judges. Some judges were a part of it. Some members of the organizing committee were a part of it, and a banquet was organized for them in Kanilai.
And were there any other events, official events, that they were invited to attend?
Still on the first edition? Still on the first edition?
Yes, please.
No, not to my knowledge. Yes, it was the independence celebration. No, I think it was the July 22nd celebration and the independence celebration, yes.
And as far as you know, when they were invited to these events, what was their role?
Okay, I attended one of them. I didn't attend the two. But it was the banquet that I attended. And they were just, they didn't do anything. They were there, there was entertainment and also food was served, and that's all. But they didn't perform any role. The one I attended was the banquet. Then the independence celebration and the July 22nd celebration, I didn't attend, but they were accompanied by a staff of the office, because they always accompanied by the staff of the office who attended. And also they just went and then they graced the occasion and they went home after.
And after that particular pageant, the first one, subsequently, did they perform any role in any of these official functions?
I think it was in the latter part, in 2014, 13, when, because I have that relationship with them. They call me anytime, I talk to them anytime. And there was a time one called me and said they got a call from State House, but it was later, that they asked to perform as ushers. And the first thing I will ask them, is your mom aware? Are your parents aware? And they say, yes, my parents are aware. I say, okay, are you comfortable? And they will say, yes, I'm comfortable. You have few who will say no, then I say, then don't go. But those that are comfortable will say they are comfortable. And most of them will say they are comfortable, and they go, and they are screened, and those that are successful in quotes will be ushers. Yes.
And as far as you know, that request from the Office of the President did not go through the Ministry of Education. It went directly to the contestants.
Yes, for the ushers, yes. But there are cases, and there are many cases in which they will call me in particular. It was after that I have an alteration with someone from the office that the individual stopped calling me, so she will be calling a member of staff in our office. But before that, they will be calling me, and when they call me, normally I will call these girls and I will ask to talk to their parents. Some of them will tell me, Auntie Tida, my parents are okay. But but some parents too will call me and ask. My daughter told me that this event is happening. Is it through the ministry? And I will tell them yes, if I'm aware. Yes.
So you sought parental consent before the girls went to events, and you also provided a chaperone.
Yes.
Apart from that, or perhaps what was the case in those events, as you mentioned, where the girls were contacted directly, do you know whether this protocol was actually followed?
I don't know, because sometimes, in fact, if the girls are contacted, we don't know. We know of cases where these girls are contacted through us. If they are contacted through us, then we know we provide transport for them, and we provide at least one chaperone for them, and the chaperone will be with them. So cases that they are not contacted, if they don't tell us, we don't know. We don't know.
And therefore the level of protection that they would receive cannot be guaranteed.
Exactly.
Were there any other events that they attended?
Yes, they attend, I think, because events where they need to spend the night, sometimes they spend the night, and that's the events, that the cultural events that goes through the night. But that one too, if we are aware, we provide transportation for them, and also they go with a chaperone. They always go with a chaperone if it's through the office.
What would be the level of interaction they would have with the president at these official functions, if he was present?
I don't know, because I don't attend those functions. I don't go.
But you have attended one courtesy call.
Yeah, that is the first edition in 2008, and that one, as I told you, it was like entertainment and also food.
You also mentioned that on some occasions they would have to spend the night. Just tell us why they would have to spend the night, and where would they spend the night, and how were these visits coordinated and arranged?
Okay, when we get the call from the office of the president, and normally they are done by protocols, both male and female. It was in the latter part that I was not getting call from the protocols, but but as member of staff in our office was getting call from the protocol, and when they call us and inform us of any activity that's supposed to happen, the first thing we do is we contact the girls and also ask for consent. But most of the time they will tell you my mom is okay, and then after that, transport will be provided for them, and they will be accompanied by a chaperone. They will spend the night, and the chaperone spends the night in the same room these girls are, because those are instructions from me, and normally it's done. And when they come back, she normally gives me feedback, and the feedback normally is, "Auntie, it's okay. Everything went on well." But the level of interaction, I cannot tell you, because apart from the first one, I don't attend those events.
And as the years progressed, did the scholarship pageant change in any way? Can you just tell us some of those changes and how it affected the scholarship program that you try to run at the ministry?
Yes, we learned a lot from the first event, and then after we reduced the number because of funding and also because of capacity. We reduced the number. The number was reduced from that 100 to 22, and the upper basic level to, and that was strictly the prerogative of the. I could remember the minister, honorable minister, saying, "These guys are a bit young. I think it's important for us. It's proper for us to limit ourselves at the senior level and at the tertiary level." And that was done. In addition to that, we try to make it more educational. And during the boot camp, people from different disciplines are invited to come and give talks regarding women empowerment, girls education, culture. We invite people from National Council for Arts and Culture, people from the private sector, like entrepreneurship education, and also, but the most important thing, and that one I take it upon myself, is the life skills education. That's why I was happy when that undisclosed witness was talking about saying no without hurting the person. I was laughing in my corner because that's what we teach them. Not her per se, but I'm talking about the participants. You understand that say no, how to negotiate yourself out of uncomfortable situations. And normally that's what I do with them. Also, there are other authorities like, I don't want to call names, but women who are well versed. There is one woman that, trained me. She's always there also for them. And she was like the counselor. We also have the counselor of the group at that particular point in time.
Did you face any challenges or difficulties as the years went by in terms of managing the scholarship?
Managing the scholarship, because the issue is everything was properly laid out for, and they all understood that if you are at this level and you win, you have scholarship up to this level. We all knew. So managing the scholarship was not a problem. I think the problem was when students started, contacting the office of the president without our knowledge, and that one we don't have control over.
Can you tell us of instances when that happened?
Yes, sometimes we will just sit and we hear that so and so and so has gone for studies without our knowledge. And I always quote the outlay of our honorable minister, because when our honorable minister goes for cabinet meetings, she goes up and the outlay is always down there, and she will come and tell me, Tida, are you aware that so and so and so is around, or so and so and so, I saw so and so and so at the office of the president over there, because when they go for the cabinet meetings, the outlay is they are downstairs, so he will be telling me.
And the outlay of which minister?
The Minister for Basic and Secondary Education.
Please wait for my question.
I'm sorry.
Before you answer. I know it's difficult getting used to it, but hopefully you will. And what would these girls be doing when they were cited at State House or Office of the President?
I don't know. He just told me that I've cited so and so there. I've seen so and so, because as a ministry, all of us, we are involved. Even our drivers are involved, so they will know them personally. So they are our children. So he will tell us. He will tell me that I've seen so and so, but he will not tell me what they're doing, and I don't think he will know.
And you've already mentioned that the president was actually sponsoring certain girls without the knowledge of the Ministry of Education directly. And do you know under what circumstances that would happen?
I don't know.
Did you get a chance to talk to any of these girls who were being sponsored after they returned?
I don't see them. And some who will contact me, because all of them have my numbers. Those who contact me normally, what I normally do is I try to counsel them all the time. They know me for that.
What would you be counseling them about?
As young women, for them to be very careful, because their future is very important. And normally we want them to be ahead of where we are.
Can you just tell me under what circumstances you would be counseling them? I mean, is there something in particular that they would say to you or report to you in terms of something that had been done to them?
No. I have to wait for 3 seconds. Okay. No, not at all. Because nobody has ever reported to me. And when I say close, I'm close to them, but nobody has ever reported to me about whatever they've encountered. But as a concerned person, and it's my work, I'm paid to do that. Normally, I would just advise them, most of the time counsel them.
Was that because you were suspicious of something going on?
No, I was not suspicious. As I said, that's my work, that's what I do. And as a concerned, because I went through good women who helped mold me to where I am today. So I try also to transfer those to them.
All right, thank you. You mentioned the courtesy call that the courtesy call of the president after the beauty, or rather the scholarship pageant. Can you tell me why you had to pay a courtesy call to the ex-president Jammeh?
As the patron of the pageant, he is the patron of the pageant.
He was the patron.
He was the patron of the pageant. Yes, thank you.
And what did that entail?
As the patron of the pageant, because it was his idea. I think it was his idea to come up after the Miss July to Miss Black USA. I think it was his idea to come up with something like this. So he was the patron. That effect.
In terms of what happened after the pageant, was there at any point that information was requested from you about the girls that contested in the pageants from the office of the president?
Yes, normally we give them the biodata of the girls together with their passport size photographs. We do, and normally, because it's a cabinet. I think it's a cabinet decision, something like that. And normally, after the end of every pageant, the honorable minister will write a cabinet paper to that effect. So, with the cabinet paper, all those particulars are put together for cabinet.
And apart from the fact that the ex-president was the patron of the pageant, was there any other reason why that information would be requested from the office of the president, considering the fact that they were not the ones managing the scholarship? It was under the purview of the Ministry of Education.
I don't really know, but what I can tell you is mostly is the letter from the Secretary General, Office of the President, and the head of the Civil Service.
And do you know where that request was coming from?
When they write with this official writings, I'm directed to. That's how it is written. So.
And as officials of the President's office, where would those directions be coming from?
I don't know, but it's from the Secretary General is the head of the Civil Service. So when they write and request, that's the Ministry too will respond.
Do you know who the Secretary General is answerable to?
As a civil servant, the Secretary General is answerable to the head of state, that is the President of the Republic.
So he would be the one to direct him, to give him directives. Is that correct?
It could be.
You also mentioned that sometimes these requests would come through protocol officers. Is that correct? Can you tell us if you remember the names of any of these protocol officers that you had the opportunity to interact with?
Yes, I think I can remember 3. Because the first one I didn't even know, because I had to ask somebody. Because this lady called me and said, "Who are you?" That's something that I don't like. And I had told her, why are you asking me? You call my phone. Then the lady said, "Don't you know that I'm a protocol officer?" And I told her, a trained protocol officer will not talk the way you will not talk the way you are talking. She hung up. Then later, a member of staff from the office came to me and said, "Tida, somebody so-and-so called me and I was asking who I was talking, who has this number." And she gave me my number. I said, "Yes, I did." And she said, "It's so-and-so and so." I said, "Okay, me, I don't care. But if you talk to me with respect." And there's the other one, the other 2, the first one is a woman, but the other 2 are men. They were all, and I think the first one was Deputy Chief of Protocol, the other one was Deputy Chief of Protocol, but I think the other one was just a protocol officer.
And in terms of the information that you supplied, you've already explained the different information that was requested. Did that information change over time? Did they make a request for information which was different from the previous one? Please remind us what information was requested at first, and if they did, what was the additional information requested from the President's office?
Yes, Council. The first, initially, we will provide the biodata, and then the passport size photograph. But I think around 2013, 2014, there these two from the Office of the Secretary General asked for the full-length photograph together with the biodata, and yes, from the biodata of the girls, yes.
Where did this request come from, the full-length photograph of these girls?
Office of the Secretary General and Head of the Civil Service.
And do you know why this request was being made?
No, we don't know, but we were asking ourselves, why the full-length picture of the girls? Because if scholarships is only the passport size photographs. So what was done was we provided what was asked for, and it was I think at that time the Honorable Minister was not in town, the Permanent Secretary was not in town, but it was the Deputy Permanent Secretary who replied the letter to the Office of the Secretary General and Head of the Civil Service.
So initially these photograph pictures, which included the face of the contestants, was supplied to the Office of the President.
Yeah.
But subsequently that was not enough. They asked for full-length photographs.
Yes.
And can you tell us how you went about obtaining these photographs?
As I said, we have regional structures. We have regional education offices, so we contact our regional education offices. And, the gender focal points are in these regional education offices, so they help us get the pictures of the girls. And also
so they had to assemble all of these girls together again and take additional photographs, which you then sent to the Office of the President?
No. They just send in their photographs and their biodata.
They were asked to take photographs on their own?
Yeah.
Okay. And then what happened subsequently with the information you received?
Nothing whatsoever. That was the last time we had from the Office of the Secretary General.
I mean, how did you transmit that information to the Office of the Secretary General?
Yeah, because it was the Secretary General that wrote to the Honorable Minister. And as I said, when we were replying, the Honorable Minister was not in town. Our Permanent Secretary too was not in town. So it was the Deputy Permanent Secretary that was around. So he replied to the Secretary General with the pictures.
Who was the Deputy Permanent Secretary at that time?
He is now our Permanent Secretary, Mr. Ibrahim Asisao.
And who was the Secretary General at the time?
I cannot remember because they were moving. I couldn't remember then. I couldn't remember.
In terms of the contestants from the scholarship pageant, were any one of them given the opportunity to work at State House, as far as you know?
That's from information that we get, because it didn't pass through our office. We don't know. So I just sat one day and one of my colleagues told me, do you know that so-and-so is at State House working as a protocol officer? Yes, we know, but it has never passed through our office as a ministry. But they do. I think I know of two.
Perhaps what you could do is that we'll just send a paper to you, and then you can just write down the names of these girls that you were informed about.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Apart from some of the girls being employed as protocol officers, did you hear of any unusual events that happened to any of these girls?
No, it was not until... Is it okay for me to say the date? Because if we talk about the date, people may know, and I'm very concerned with the confidentiality and the protection of these girls. But there was a time...
That is fine. You can mention the date.
Yeah.
And then if you need to mention a particular name, or perhaps don't mention names, write them down for us on the piece of paper, which we will supply.
I would prefer that. So it was this particular... I was not in town when it happened, but a certain incident happened with a particular girl that we never suspected, was happening. So what I did was, I contacted the mom. When I came back, I went straight to the mom and I asked her, what I'm hearing that is happening, because it was all over social media. How can this happen? Because as far as we know, these girls, when they go to any event, they are accompanied by chaperones, and the chaperones are the first to be in the vehicle, and they are last to leave the vehicle, because that one is a matter of must. That they will be first in the vehicle, or even if they are to meet somewhere, converse somewhere, they wait for everybody. And after the event, the chaperone is the last, one or at least one chaperone will be the last to leave the vehicle. So how can this happen? Then she laughed. She told me, Tida, you don't know what is going on. You know? You see, after the children, my daughter took part in this event, it was then that somebody, I don't want to call name again, visited them, their house, and said they want to help in a different way. But I told the mom that that's not true.
Can you just perhaps tell us, just to be more specific, what position that person was in and where they were working?
Okay. This person is a protocol officer, and this person was working at the office of the president. So it was after this incident happened, and I was not in town, but when I came back, because I was getting calls from my colleagues, and I had to advise them to stop calling me. When I come back, we will see what we can do. But at that particular point in time too, the authorities in the ministry has taken action. But I wanted to know how it happened, because we were able to, make a lot of precautions to make sure that these girls are protected. So I went to the mom, and I asked the mom, how does it happen? Because I cannot understand. And she laughed. She told me, Tida, you don't know what's going on. So it's this particular person that came to my house and said that the office, I'm trying to say it in a way that, it will not affect.
If perhaps, if you don't mind, that is, if you have no objection to that, you can name the person that you're referring to, if you feel comfortable enough. Otherwise, as I said, we will give you a piece of paper to write the name of.
Okay. Yes, she told me that this person came to my office and my house and said they help the winners. So we want to know your situation. But I told the mom that that that's not true, because the main the prize of the event is scholarships.
Can you just tell us, just so that we can understand you better, what information you had initially received that led to your investigations?
Can you please allow me, I still want to protect this girl. Can you allow me just to write it on paper?
Yes.
I don't want to say anything regarding to that, because people will know.
Without revealing the name of the girl, tell us what happened to her. That's what I meant.
Can I write that down too? Because people will know.
I don't necessarily think so. Just tell us what information you received and tell us, and write down the name of the girl. Whatever the case,
Yes.
thank you for that information. Whatever the case, just do what makes you feel comfortable. Are you comfortable in telling us what information you had received?
I will not say it, because if I say it, it will be public knowledge, and I don't want that to happen.
Okay.
But I can tell you in private, in camera.
That's fine. Perhaps you could also write that down then.
Okay, I can.
Can you tell us whether it was a form of sexual violence?
To my knowledge, the information I have was not sexual violence, no.
And after that, what information did you receive from the girl's mother?
Yes, she just told me that this is what happened, but I don't want also, because at that particular point in time, she was very disturbed to me. She looks very disturbed, so I don't want to probe. But what made me glad was the girl was, she was like safe, and I was okay with that for that moment. But normally I talk to the mom, and I try to counsel her as much as she can, and I think she can attest to that too.
Did you subsequently receive any information that led you to know or believe what actually happened to this particular girl?
It was at a later stage, just recently, that I received information. Yeah, it was at a later stage, because at that particular time I didn't know what exactly had happened. Something happened, and that prompted me to go to the mom and talk to the mom. But it was just recently that I knew some of the things that allegedly happened to her.
Can you tell us what you heard allegedly happened to her?
That she was sexually abused.
And before this happened, do you know whether or not, perhaps you could tell us what the allegations are as to who sexually abused her?
Yes, she was sexually abused by the president, the former president of the republic.
And subsequent to that, or rather prior to her being sexually abused by the president, was she seen in close proximity to the ex-president?
As I told you, I don't attend these events, so I don't know. And the funny thing about everything is, we never get complaints. Because as I tell you, when you see one of them, you will see them running and hugging me. That's the relationship I have with them. But nobody has ever come and complain or even give us a gist of that this is happening. We never have complaints. Never. From the parents and also from the girls themselves.
Mrs. Jarju, all of the information you have provided so far is basically information you have received. We understand that you do not have personal knowledge of these events. So the question is directed to whether you received information about the whereabouts of this particular girl during the time when this sexual abuse allegedly happened, and whether or not she was in close proximity to the president or seen at State House, for example. That is what I was asking.
Yeah. As I told you, I don't have information until recently. I didn't have information until recently about the alleged sexual abuse. So it would be difficult for me to know whether they were in close proximity. And as I said too, that I don't attend these events, so I don't know.
Did you receive any information to suggest that she was seen at State House, for example?
In 2000, and let me not talk about it because that was the point. But there was a time, because normally when they have, girls, when they are together, we have our issues. When they have issues, I will call them and I will meet them and I will talk to them in the office. So there was this time around, one of them said, because I think they had a WhatsApp group or something like that, but I had one of my colleagues give me this information that these guys are having petty talks among themselves. And the information is, one of them said that her aunt saw this particular girl in Kanilai. But that was not what we knew of. So I called them for a meeting, and I asked this particular girl, have you been in Kanilai? She said, no, Auntie Tida, I've not been there. So I had to address them individually. So that's one instance when one of the girls accused the other one of the aunt seeing her in Kanilai. That's only one of the instances, and I addressed the issue with them, that if you are not sure of something, don't try and speculate.
Apart from this particular girl who suffered sexual abuse at the hands of the ex-president, do you know of any other girls from the pageants who did?
I don't, because as I told you, nobody has ever reported. And no parent too has ever reported the case, or even give us a gist, no.
Do you know of any of the pageant girls who were subsequently employed as protocol officers?
Yes, I told you I know two of them, but it was not through our office.
Can you please write those down as well for us?
Okay.
Do you know under what circumstances these two girls would actually, the circumstances under which these two girls were employed as protocol officers at the State House?
I don't know.
What about in terms of the scholarships that were awarded to girls personally by the president? Do you know under what circumstances these scholarships were given to them, and whether or not they actually completed their studies?
I don't know, but for this, to answer to your second part of the question, I know of I think one or two who couldn't continue because the money, the funding was not forthcoming. I cannot remember exactly their names, but I learned that one or two couldn't continue because the funding was not forthcoming.
So what happened after the funding was not forthcoming? What happened to these girls?
I think I saw one active on social media, and I think I saw one who graduated recently. And I was counting the number of years that she has to spend to graduate, but she successfully graduated in UK.
You also mentioned a particular name as facilitating some of these pageant girls to be protocol officers and facilitating their presence at State House. I don't believe that you gave us the name. If you're comfortable to name them, that's fine. Otherwise, then you would have to write.
Can I write it down, please?
Thank you.
And the issue is not facilitating for them to be protocol officers, but for them to be ushers, not protocol officers, ushers.
Apart from facilitating for them to be ushers, do you know if they facilitated any other things to happen in terms of the ex-president?
Not to my knowledge. Not to my knowledge until I but I had a discussion with the mom when something happened to the girl that I'm talking to you about, that I told you about earlier on. So when I had a discussion, that was the time the mom told me that this particular lady, the one I just wrote, visited them at home.
And you've mentioned the protocol officers as well that used to deal with some of these girls. You haven't mentioned them. Can you give us the names?
The other two?
Are you not comfortable to mention them? Their names are not protected.
Yeah, yes. But you have one, Sana Jarju once called me, and then I think Bori, he was a teacher, I think Bori Koli, the one who was the National Assembly member. I think it's Bori Koli. He also once called me. But that one is for official events, for girls to attend official events.
And under what circumstances did they call
it was official event, I think. It was an official event. I think for this Sana, I can vividly remember, it was the Gamo at State House. But Bori, I think it's an order for official event, but I cannot remember that one.
You've already told us that there were also other occasions on which you did not receive calls, but the girls were subsequently seen at State House.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. These are not occasions, but Some of them are occasions, but some of them to the oddly of our former honorable minister will see them and see, he will tell me.
And it was during those occasions when they were not afforded the protective measures that you had in place at the Ministry of Education that such incidents of sexual abuse occurred on these girls. Is that correct?
Please.
My apologies, Madam Witness. Just give me 1 minute whilst I consult with the legal team. Mr. Chairman, I'm conscious about the time because it's break, but I will need some time with the witness, perhaps about 15 or 20 minutes. But I would prefer to do it after the break, and then we can conclude with her and